It's New Year's Eve here on Locked On Grizzlies, and we are counting down to this terrible year being over, at least ending horribly in terms of injuries. But the Grizzlies got some good injury news yesterday. We'll talk about Ja Morant's surprisingly positive injury report, keys to getting through this tough stretch for Memphis in terms of the injury report, and obviously Memphis plays the Suns tonight. We'll break all that down and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, it is the final episode of 2024 for Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax. It's always good to say that because that means the dynamic duo rides again. I don't know if you saw this or not, Damichael. I tagged you on social media. We received quite the compliment yesterday. We were said, outside of Pete Pranica and Brevin Knight, which, kudos, much respect to those two. Yeah. We are the best, most level-headed Grizzlies analysts out there.
Really?
Which I gotta
like
tell
it. I'll take it.
I mean, maybe they were already drunk for the new year, calling me level-headed. Absolutely. You deserve that praise 100%.
No, Joe. We balance it out around here.
Yeah, the yin and the yang. That's exactly right. Well, Damichael and I are back together. It's a great way to close out what has been a great 2024 for Locked On Grizzlies. And we thank you, our everydayers, our listeners, our viewers, for helping with the continued growth of the podcast. It is much appreciated. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts as proud members of Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Check us out. Become an everydayer. If you don't already, check out the show each and every time that an episode drops. Damichael did an excellent job on yesterday's show. Obviously, we're back together for this one. There will be no show on Wednesday because it's New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I don't know about you, but I have a wife. I have kids. I'm going to spend some time on the holiday with them. I have a feeling Damichael, much more young, much more fun and cool. Damichael probably has plans of his own after the Suns game tonight. So we'll catch you guys back here on Thursday. How's that sound? No Wednesday edition of the show. Damichael, we have a free daily newsletter, right? Yep. That continues to have success. We're still in the top 10 among those free daily newsletters. LockedOnDaily.com is where you go to subscribe to Locked On Grizzlies. Again, free daily newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com. Go to Locked On Grizzlies and subscribe. One of the topics in today's newsletter, this is not going to surprise anyone, is not clean bill of health, because that's not quite the way to describe it, but the Memphis Grizzlies, who the injury report is starting to look like the one from last year a little bit. Lots of names on that report that I'm sure we'll talk about throughout the episode. But the most important one, no offense to the others, is Ja Morant. And the Grizzlies sent out finally that medical update, a grade 1 AC joint sprain in the shoulder. That's best case scenario for this kind of injury. Ja is week to week. I've alluded to, as have you in the past, of all the Grizzlies that kind of gets the push to come back a little bit faster. Yeah. It's Ja. I would anticipate we'll see him back definitely before Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That's a best case scenario for Memphis, considering how bad things have been going on the injury front.
It's huge. It's huge because we talk about how tough this upcoming stretch will be for them. But actually, this stretch right here, like you talk about, just this stretch of road games in particular, if you want to just bottle it down to that, it's not overly tough. And we'll talk about the Suns in a little bit here. But the point is, at the end of the day, the Suns, the Kings, and the Warriors are currently 10, 11, 12 in the West, which, 10, 11, 12 in the West is still a little bit higher in the Eastern Conference. But at the same time, it's teams that the Grizzlies have been better than pretty much most of this season. So with all that being said, you would like to think that with that news, it kind of gives you some confidence that you can kind of tread water, right? Like my thing yesterday on the show that I was talking about is you don't want this injury to result in the Grizzlies losing, 7 of their next 10. And then the next thing you know, they're dropped down to the 6th seed, because that's all it takes in the West. I mean, the Suns and the Warriors are perfect examples. Joe, you remember earlier this season, they were 2-3. Like they were right there with OKC. When the Suns were healthy, I think they were something like 8-1, 9-1. And
The
then the
Lakers were the greatest creation in the history of basketball. JJ
Redick was
the JJ stood for Jesus Jr. when it comes to basketball creativity and development. It's Jesus remarkable.
Jr. Yeah, and now he's getting his stats are getting compared to Darvin Ham again.
Ooh. Well, thankfully he didn't win the in-season tournament. He won't get fired.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I think with the Grizzlies, so Ja being, out week to week, you say MLK Day. I think that's a good kind of standing, but it's huge. It's huge because even after this stretch of 3 games here, when you talk about the next home game, I think it's January 6th, you'll get the Mavs, but there won't be any Luka. Luka won't be back for that one. And then after that, you get Houston, who's been really good, but, and then it gets tough. It gets tough. You get Houston, you got Minnesota, you got San Antonio, but still, I guess you can say crisis averted, in a way, because the West is so tough. I mean, we talked about it time and time again, Joe. All it takes is one big injury, one bad losing streak, and you could just fume right down the standings. I mean, these two, like I said, these teams are prime examples of that. The Suns, they were near the top, and then I think it was Kevin Durant got hurt, and we saw they were something like 0-7, 0-8 or something without Kevin Durant. And then next thing you know, with the Warriors, with everything that they've gone through. So, I think that's kind of where everything sits right now. But crisis averted for sure.
Crisis averted, and it's definitely a situation where if you look at this Grizzlies roster, and we'll talk more about this later on in the show, the things that they need to do to kind of endure. They have the talent when Ja is on the floor. And we have to, again, we'll talk more about these guys, but Santi Aldama, not out there, right? Zach Edey, not out there. Marcus Smart, still out. There are numerous players. When the depth is there, you have the capacity to run this high-paced, high-octane offense. That's not there right now. Your bench is essentially Luke Kennard, Jay Huff, and Cam Spencer, right? That's the bench. And they just don't – even Yuki Kawamura is on the darn injury report.
He's on the injury report.
It's one of those things that they have to make adjustments, adapt or die here. And that doesn't mean you change scheme because you have an injury run for a week or two. But I do think that the team needs to be smart about how they proceed over the next several games. Without Ja, they can't do the same things that they can with Ja. That's not groundbreaking analysis, but it's reality. And one of the things that makes me so nervous about a team that is so different schematically, are they able to adjust coming out of this new scheme and this new system? Part of what the offense is that pace. They simply don't have the bodies to execute it right now.
Yeah, and this is where I struggle to kind of find the medium here in terms of is it playing style, is it usage, or lack thereof in a way. Like there's something to be said for, hey, when guys play, 36, 37 minutes consistently, they're more built for it. I don't know, but you can make the argument for both ways, and that's where I'd like to know your opinion on it. But quite frankly, and I know everyone's not going to agree with this, but I don't know just what really they could do differently to avoid some of these things. Like some of it is just simply bad luck, in my opinion. And, the Ja injuries are a good example of that. Like Ja specifically comes out and says, hey, I'm not going to dunk in order to protect, basically to take care of himself a little bit better. Then next thing you know, he gets undercut, on an alley-oop, leads to a hip injury that he's out for weeks. And then next thing you know, a screen, we see hundreds of these in every game, a guard taking a screen from a big, and then boom, AC joint sprain week to week. It's tough. Santi Aldama, he literally turns his ankle. Zach Edey turned the ankle now he's in concussion protocol. Zach Edey was pretty healthy at Purdue, and I know people are going to say, oh, he didn't miss the game. He missed one game at Purdue because of illness, and all of a sudden he's already missed more games in 30 games with the Grizzlies than he did in his entire 4-year career with Purdue. Like, I don't know what you can really trace it back to. I don't know if I do remember talking to Taylor Jenkins about this, and he was basically the only thing related to pace that he said, Joe, was that we are still very early in this whole the speed that we're trying to consistently play at. There is no data in history on what the Grizzlies want to do. I agree with that. I think most of you can agree with that as well. With the pace that they want to consistently push the ball at, there is no, hey, this team did it before and they played their point guard 35 minutes and here's how it worked for them. So I think there's a cautionary, approach with that. And people can say what they want about it, but you have the number 2 seed in the West using it. In my case, I look at it as better safe than sorry. It could be the opposite where you play 35 minutes, you run your guys into the ground, or whatever the case may be. But I remember early on in the preseason when I was talking to some of these guys, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, I think Santi said it as well. A lot of players said it, and you got I got the inclination that this was something that they had talked about. When a lot of players say the same thing, it's because they talk about it. These players were saying, Joe, and this stood out to me. They said everyone wants to play with pace at the beginning of the season. That's kind of how it was. Everyone's fresh. Everyone has fresh legs. We want to be that team. Joe, I got to use a football analogy for you. We want to be that team.
I do love football analogies.
You know how you got that big bruising running back and you just keep gashing him for the first 3 quarters. He's only getting 4 yards to carry. It's like, it's whatever. But in that 4th quarter, those defensive linemen are breaking down. Those defensive backs saying, man, I'm tired of keep running into this dude play after play after play. And then those 4 yards, turn into 8-yard runs. And so they're trying to be that team now. We're playing with pace right now. Everybody's playing with pace. But when the league slows down, we want to still be able to push the envelope. And I think that's kind of what they're aiming for.
I think you're exactly right. And the important point is we don't have the data, right? It doesn't exist. That's exactly right what Taylor Jenkins said. It's hard to be able to measure. I think it's human nature to say I'm paying this guy an obscene amount of money. He should play more than 29 minutes a game. But at the same time, what is the end goal, right? You and I have talked about this for over a year now. Mm-hmm. Are we trying to win a championship or not? Yep. You don't win championships in December and January. You want this team clicking on all cylinders healthy in March and April. Obviously, you don't want half your roster on the injury report, but you're trying to get to a place where you're able to endure that and be at your best 3 months from now, not right now. So I'm not sweating it. Certainly not sweating it now that Ja's long-term health seems solid, at least for the moment. Make sure.
And one thing, Joe,
please.
People always say, we said this on the show before, but I guess when people get mad, they kind of forget it. But people keep saying, fire the training staff and all these. They have a different head trainer.
Literally a different head trainer. Yeah.
It's not
and in the last
same.
couple of years, they've changed organizations entirely.
Yes, they have. Campbell, Ortho, they've done everything that you guys can think of. Injuries just keep happening. I mean, I don't know what else you want.
Just kind of a shrug and a move along. Hit Damichael up on X at Damichael C, me on X at Joe Mullinax, or hit us up in the comments. Let us know how you're feeling. I'm guessing it's a sigh of relief with Ja Morant healthy, at least in the short term, coming up here in the next couple of weeks. He should be back. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we will talk ways to endure the current injury situation. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments at a lower cost than branded alternatives for ED. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real United States clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. Speaking of things getting hard, partner, we have a situation on our hands with this team in terms of I couldn't keep it. It's so close. So close. Oh, man. Sorry,
you
audience.
stuck that one right in there. I
sorry, audience. Dang it. I saw you laugh. Curse you, YouTube. But anyway, it's getting hard for the Grizzlies from an injury perspective. We know that at this stage. We've talked a lot about it already on this episode. Part of the newsletter, again, free daily newsletter over at lockedondaily.com. I write about ways to keep the thing afloat, as you referenced earlier? How do you keep your head above water?
Yep.
For me, it's fairly simple. You have to chuck a lot of threes, right? Your personnel lends itself to it. Your bench right now is Luke Kennard, Jay Huff, and Cam Spencer.
Shooters.
Those are three guys that are pretty good shooters, right? You got Jalen Wells, who's still in the mix. Obviously, Desmond Bane. Even with John Conchar ridiculously starting at the 4, although he is a good rebounder.
You watch it, Joe. You watch it. That's a 15 rebound man right there.
Understand the logic of White Rice Conchar. You can throw him out there and he has success. In theory, you've got 8 dudes that can shoot, right? Hypothetically speaking. So I want to see the team set a record at some point for 3 points attempted, right? And then I want them to break that record the next game, as long as they're in this injury mix, because I think it fits their personnel. I think that they have to protect possessions. That Oklahoma City Thunder game was lost, in my opinion, in turnovers and the points that OKC was able to score off of them. I think it was something like 21 turnovers, but OKC got 33 points off of those turnovers. Memphis cannot endure that. And again, those turnovers are part of the process in terms of the pace, right? So they have to make some sort of adjustment there to me. And again, the simplest thing that you can do is just lean on your stars. Yeah. I don't know if you know this or not, partner, but over the last 10 games, Desmond Bane is shooting 51.4% overall from the field, 41.5% from beyond the arc, 92.3% from the charity stripe. That is from the newsletter, and those stats are per ESPN. The point I'm trying to make is at some point you got to lean on your stars. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a rough game against OKC. I'm not exactly sure who's going to defend Jaren on the Phoenix Suns. So I think that this is a game where Jaren should go off and Desmond should continue his hot streak. You got to lean on your guys that you pay the big bucks to.
Yeah, that's the key to getting through this stretch here. And you need other guys to step up in other areas as well. Like I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but one of the kind of sneaky things that's different now is a lot of the best secondary playmakers are out. So, like when you get past the top 3 assist guys being Ja Morant, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Desmond Bane, the next 4 are all unavailable currently for the Grizzlies. So you need, your guy, Luke Kennard, right? Really, and he's been a good secondary playmaker for them. You're going to need him to kind of flash more in that role. How about a guy like Jalen Wells averaging like 1.5 assists per game? We're going to need to see a little bit more from that area of his game. Jaren Jackson Jr. last season took a step forward. This season, he's taking a step back. The passing is in that OKC game. He shot 3 of 17, and he had so many chances. They were all over him. They were hounding him a little bit, and I don't know what really goes through his head in those situations. But sometimes it's like he's got tunnel vision, when he's in those kind of scenarios. But he scores his way through them sometimes, so you just deal with it. But then when you're going against Isaiah Hartenstein, it ain't the same. So yeah, I do agree with you from the standpoint of you want to lean onto your stars, but I lean more into you need those other guys to step up and to produce into relatively similar roles. You need Luke Kennard to operate as that secondary playmaker who can go get you 5 assists. You need Cam Spencer to come in, not be shy, and to really get those shots up, which has not been a thing for him. You need Jay Huff. I thought Jay Huff was solid in that last game. You need him to continue to play solid basketball as well. And if you get all of those things, I think you'll be decently, you'll be okay. As long as they can lean into those principles, they'll be fine.
I am interested to see Jay Huff. That's a guy that, I have my guys, right? Yep. Like Desmond Bane is my guy, right? Luke Kennard is my guy. Yep. Jay Huff has been my guy going back to the UVA days.
Wahoo,
so yeah. I've tried to be particularly unbiased towards him, but this is a tremendous opportunity for him to show what he can do. And there were flashes of it against the Thunder. He had a big, I think it was on a rebound, put back slam dunk that he just stunned. Like
that, aggressiveness is what they need.
Right. They need that tenacity. And that's exactly, again, my meld partner. It's not just the ability to dunk. It's the mentality that I don't give a crap who is on the court with me. This is how we play basketball. And again, that kind of contradicts what I said about the pace, but it's more so, it's not just the way that you play, it's the way that you engage with the game. It's the way that you attack it. It's the way that you bring the mental focus and the aggression. That's what Marcus Smart usually does. That physicality in terms of dunking and finishing at the rim. That's a Brandon Clark thing. Obviously, Ja Morant has the propensity to do that from time to time. Those guys are currently not in the mix. So you need a guy like Huff to be that spark of energy when the Grizzlies go through a down spell, because that's going to happen whether we want it to or not.
Yeah, he has his strengths, and I credit J Huff for really leaning into those so far this season. I really, since we're talking about Keith and during injury woes here, the Jaren Jackson Jr. J Huff combination numbers got to get better, and I know you've noticed it as well. But
absolutely,
Jaren Jackson Jr. playing alongside of Zach Edey has been money. Jaren Jackson Jr. playing alongside of Brandon Clark is still double digits better than opponents, and him and Zach Edey are the best combination of bigs that the Grizzlies have when playing together per 100 possessions. But they're negative when it's J Huff and Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think the number one reason for that is some physicality things. Neither of them have been great rebounders this season, whereas Santi has been a great, the numbers, it's funny saying it now because we used to kind of nitpick at him a little bit about this, but Santi's been a solid rebounder this year. Brandon Clark has always been a solid rebounder. Zach Edey has been an elite rebounder. So with those three guys, you get that. Whereas with the J Huff and Zach Edey combination, you don't get much of that. But it has to improve at this point. You need it.
You need it for sure. Let Damichael know at Damichael C. Hit me up on X at Joe Mullinax, or hit us up in the comments. What are your keys for Memphis to get through this? Again, for me, it's chucking threes. It's leaning on Dez and Jaren. It's protecting those possessions. What do you think matters most for Memphis to get through this stretch? When we come back here on the podcast, we will close out our final episode of 2024 talking about Grizzly Suns. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened for me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It helps monitor your spending and also helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place: subscriptions, spending habits, goals that you want to hit in the new year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year, all while using the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/locked on. Go to Rocket Money today. We close out our final show of 2024 partner previewing Grizzlies Suns. The injury report is long but distinguished for the Memphis Grizzlies. Lots of guys out. Then you have the Phoenix Suns, who a little bit cleaner bill of health, but they still have some dudes not participating. The biggest name on their injury report, Devin Booker, has been upgraded to questionable going into tonight's game. Yeah. Kevin Durant will be there. Bradley Beal will be there. The Suns are a team that's floundering a little bit. They should be better than they are. The very flimsy house of cards that this roster was built around, not necessarily sustaining itself at the moment. But Kevin Durant is still one of the top 10 players in the NBA. When Devin Booker goes off, he's one of the best scorers in the NBA. Bradley Beal being your third best player. When those three guys are clicking, you certainly can have your hands full. Assuming Booker plays, how do the Grizzlies get through this particular game and find a way to end 2024 with a win?
Jaren Jackson Jr. This is his game. This is the Jaren Jackson Jr. game without a doubt. If you go back to the last two games against the Suns, and you mentioned it, Joe, and I think you were kind of getting to this when you said it, they couldn't guard this dude. As Ja Morant likes to say, they can't see a baby picture of him.
I get that reference now. Can't see a baby picture of him.
Yeah, there you go. So, Nurkic, who isn't going to play, by the way, he was throwing. Did you see that fight, Joe?
I did see that fight. Yeah.
Throwing some blows out there on the court.
Next time Ja Morant gets screened like that, I need somebody. It could be John Conchar. John Conchar can come in and be the guy that eats the suspension and stands up for Ja.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, he needed a dirty work guy around. Steven Adams wouldn't stand for some of that stuff. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think it's the Jaren Jackson Jr. game. If you go back to his last two games in the last season against the Phoenix Suns, there was the December 2023 matchup. So he had 37 points in that game, 9 rebounds, 13 of 21 shooting. You go to the game after that, January of 2024. I mean, it was obvious from the start. You could tell he was just trying to pick up where he left off. In 32 minutes, he had 28 points. He had 10 rebounds. He had 6 assists in that game against the Suns. So his last 2 games against the Suns have been just straight dominance. Like, it's straight, you can't guard me, and it's nothing you're going to be able to do to stop me type stuff. So looking forward to seeing that, because clearly the Suns are going to build their game plan around stopping him. And quite frankly, the way the Suns are built and constructed right now, we'll see. They have a better chance probably against him because they didn't have, they're probably, I don't know how Plumlee is going to fare. Also, Iguodala, I don't remember if you liked him a lot in the pre-draft stuff.
Yeah.
He was a fun guy to monitor, but they have a couple other different types of bigs. So the point that I'm making is they got some different options. Where last season it was Nurkic and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, too frail. Jaren Jackson Jr. just going right through the chest. Nurkic too slow with the foot speed. So with Plumlee and also they'll have some other options as well to mix in with KD, but the game goes through Jaren Jackson Jr.
Ryan Dunn is intriguing, right? Another UVA Cavalier. I liked him a lot in the draft process. Didn't think he really made sense for Memphis given the current roster construction, but he was probably the best defender on ball coming out of the draft.
Yeah.
And he has looked that part for Phoenix. He's done some really impressive things. He's basically like Brandon Clark, right? Like there's a lot of similarities in their games. I'm interested to see how they defend Jaren Jackson Jr. Do you put Dunn on Jaren? I'm not sure how you hide any of these guys in terms of their struggles. It's going to be really tough. Obviously, old friend Tyus Jones, we know what he is defensively. Somebody's going to have a mismatch at some point, and I think Memphis has to take advantage.
Joe, there's a conversation to be had after this one. Scottie Pippen Jr. versus Tyus Jones. It's time to settle it, Joe. It's time to settle the debate. Who was the better fill-in backup point guard for the Grizzlies? Is it more the defensive guy? Is it the offensive assist turnover maestro? I'm looking forward to that battle.
Well, considering how much cheaper Scottie Pippen Jr. is, I would easily say
Scottie
Pippen Jr. But that might be a good topic for our 2025 debut here in a couple of days when we review this game. So hit Damichael and I up in the comments. Let us know on X at Damichael C at Joe Mullinax. Let us know what you think are the keys to Grizzlies Suns. Jaren is the key for both of us, right? I think it really is that simple for Memphis. If Jaren goes off, to a lesser extent, Dez, I think the Grizzlies can win this game even in their current state. If Jaren struggles the way he did against OKC, I just don't see how Memphis has a path to winning this thing. The Suns have some injuries, as Damichael alluded to. It's not going to be the exact same Phoenix team, but obviously Memphis is going to be without a lot of guys as well. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we will be off on Wednesday. Hopefully you understand. It's going to be a New Year's Day opportunity for Damichael and I to spend time with friends and family. I just realized on the schedule, Damichael, the Grizzlies, Phoenix is an underrated city for NBA players, I've been told.
The word's out now. I don't know how underrated it is anymore. The word is out. When you go to Phoenix and you get out there in Scottsdale, it's time to have a good time.
And the Grizzlies are off until Friday, and they're on a road trip. So I would imagine that they're not coming back to Memphis and then going to Sacramento. So I just hope the Grizzlies have fun after this game and not too much fun. I'm sure they'll be off on Wednesday, would be my prediction.
It'll be hard to find out.
Yes, we will also be off on Wednesday. We will rejoin you on Thursday with our first episode of 2025. We'll review Grizzlies Suns. Some New Year's resolutions, right? The stereotypical resolutions episode. I think that would be a fun thing to discuss on Thursday, partner.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I definitely got some things I got to get off my chest on that, right? And especially in Grizzlies regard as well. So
interesting. Yeah, a little bit of spice coming from Damichael Cole. I love spicy Damichael Cole. That's good to hear. Well, we will be off on Wednesday, as I mentioned. The newsletter will also be off on Wednesday. Newsletter and podcast will be back on Thursday. From my family to yours, I'm sure I'll speak for Damichael on this one. From his family to yours, we wish you the happiest and healthiest of New Year's. We are so grateful for all that you guys have done for us, helping us build this podcast. Damichael and I talk about it every once in a while. The sheer amount of growth that we've had just in 2024 has really been wonderful to see. We want to keep that energy going. Any way we can keep the show building and getting better, it's going to be a priority for us moving forward. So thank you so much for making our 2024 a successful one. Here's to happier and healthier and better things ahead for all of us in 2025. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Check out LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe to our free daily newsletter. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Happy New Year, everybody. We will catch you back here on Thursday. Stay safe out there. Have a great time with family and friends. See you later, 2024. The next time we chat with you, it'll be 2025. Have a good one.